Hello.
Can you see me or no, you can't see me right
Not
now?
yet. I can now.
Yeah. Very
We've been
good.
up to this morning. Anything fun?
What if I went to have breakfast with my parents and my wife and I now have a cat. So just been she's here and yeah, just trying to adapt to life with a cat really because I'm
Yeah.
with a pet.
No.
Have you
No,
ever?
no, no, no. I've desperately used to beg my parents for a dog always, but it just never was on the cards. So when we don't live in London, perhaps on a flat, then maybe we can go for the pets. But at the
Yeah.
moment, it's just not doable. But yeah, hopefully one day we'll have a dog. Golden Retriever is the dream.
Okay.
So hi Amit, how are you?
I'm well. How are you this morning?
Yes, I'm good, thank you. I thought we'd just jump straight in. I was having a little look on your IMDb page, which is full and really useful for me today. And there was mention of the fact that you didn't do any acting until you were 16 and you were cast as a lead role in your play. And I'm wondering what play that was that obviously started this venture for you.
The play was The Visit by,
Okay.
I think the playwright was Matt.
Oh,
I,
wow. Okay.
it was so long ago. Uh,
Yeah.
but it was the annual school play at my secondary school. And I'd been to a few as an audience member in previous years. But that year, when I was 16, decided to take drama studies, or was it? No, it was theatre studies as an,
Hmm.
and my teacher thought, I should audition for this lead role, and I did. And yeah, I loved the whole experience. It was
Yeah.
enlightening for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm wondering from then, because I mean, I've had this, bless them, from my parents being like, is it not just a hobby, Grace? It might just be a hobby for you. Do you want to go and do the history degree? And I was like, not sure. So I was like, no, I think there was something I wanted to be an actor. And I was wondering if there was like a moment or where you went, no, it's not just a hobby in the school play. It's going to probably be a career that I want to pursue. And like, when was that for you?
I think under the surface, it was a career I wanted to pursue,
Mm,
but on the surface, I don't think I had the confidence or the belief that I would get regular work.
mm,
Also, no one from my family was involved in the arts or any creative job. So it felt very much like an unknown to me.
mm.
So yeah, there were two levels to it. What is what I'm saying is that yes, deep down, I think I always wanted to be an actor and be involved in film and TV and theatre, but
Wasn't
uh,
sure how.
yeah, I wasn't sure how or whether it could happen or
Yeah.
whether it's possible.
Yeah. Very two normal things, I think, to think of, definitely.
And
And so you went on to train as well after that?
yeah, so after my A levels, I decided to do it at university. So I did a drama degree at university, which was Staffordshire University.
Hmm.
But it wasn't drama training. There was a theory part to that degree, and I felt like I wanted full-time training. So after my degree, I applied for a postgraduate course at Lambda. I got in and yeah, did that course. It was a classical acting course. And whilst I was there in my final semester, I auditioned for a West End musical. It was open auditions. I didn't have an agent at that time, and then somehow got offered a part and did a 12-month contract as my first job.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah, that's amazing. What was the show?
Well, I don't, it might have been before your time. It was called Bombay Dreams. It was
Okay.
an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, but the music was written by A.R. Rahman, who usually does a lot of movie soundtracks, but he's very famous for doing the soundtrack of Slumdog Millionaire.
Yes.
But he kind of composed the music, but Andrew Lloyd Webber produced it. It was at the Apollo Victoria.
Hmm.
Yes, it was a full-on Bollywood style musical on the West End
Yeah.
stage.
That's crazy. So that would have been, I'm presuming that would have been your first ever sort of really big audition then, outside of drama school. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I had no idea what I was doing, but it was it wasn't just one audition. There were a whole series
Yeah.
of auditions.
Yeah, because musicals are, I feel like musicals are a bit more, there's a lot more rounds to musicals than I fear for just acting jobs.
Yes, because I guess you have to be able to dance, sing, and act to a certain level.
Mm.
So, yes, I remember there were singing, dance auditions. I mean, I totally failed in both of those ones, but I think they were thinking of me for a featured acting role
Mm.
with kind of the potential for me to be involved in ensemble kind of singing and dance numbers. But yeah, it was a funny kind of featured role that I was,
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed it. And for me, my first job, going into a 12-month contract, being able to perform 8 times a week, building up a stamina and routine. And, I was not in a relationship. I was still living at home, and
Mm.
um, I could really immerse myself into that job, and
That
it
is
was
like really being thrown in at the deep end. I can imagine like 12-month contract. That's a big contract to just sort of do straight away.
yeah, but also on the flip side, an amazing opportunity
Of
because
course, yeah.
you learn so much from performing to 2,000 people every night or every show. So
Mm.
in that sense, it was incredibly useful for me, and I learned so much.
Yeah. And how nervous were you for your like opening night? Because I feel like I'd be like a shaking leak. I'd be like absolutely like, oh, but I bet the excitement and the adrenaline was also there as well.
So I was in the second cast, and I think I was able to go and see some of the shows from the original cast, and during my rehearsals, and we had a number of previews
Mm.
before our official second cast press night or opening, whatever you want to call it. So,
Mm.
but yes, I was still very nervous.
Mm.
Uh, I don't think I was fully ready for all the dance numbers and still figuring it out.
Of course, yeah.
Someone who had trained on a classical acting course and then was suddenly in a musical,
Mm.
I was still figuring things out. But yeah, look, adrenaline gets you through. And
Mm.
as the run goes on, you become so comfortable and you're able to play around and find new things.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
that
that is the beauty of doing a job for a longer time, isn't it? You get to feel much more settled in by, month two. Definitely.
exactly, yes.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. And so I was going to ask you, obviously, what was your first big job, but you've basically just said it. So TV and film, though, what was sort of your first big role for those, and how did that pan out? Was that quite shortly after the musical, or was that a little bit time after?
I'd say it was quite a while after. I think I want to say 2005. I started the show Bombay Dreams in 2003 to 2004. Then 2005, I probably had my first screen experience,
Hmm.
screen job, and then went back to doing theatre for quite a while. I was at the National Theatre for maybe 2 years, doing
Amazing.
shows back to back, and then I kept going back to do shows at the National and the Royal Court, RSC,
Mm.
Donmar, yes, kind of various theatres in and
Yeah,
around.
theatre focused. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And were there any points where you had some sort of downtime in between jobs that you were like, Oh, what do I do now type of thing? Did you have that?
I feel like that's happening more now.
Okay.
Now that I don't really focus my time on theatre so much in terms of working in theatre.
Mm.
Uh, Now that I'm doing more screen work, I feel like the gaps get longer and longer. Uh,
Yeah.
and maybe because you change as an actor and your profile changes and your career goes in different directions. And, you're going up for parts where there's a lot more competition. So there's a lot more opportunity to not get the work. So
Mm.
yeah, you get sometimes, well, I'm experiencing
Mm. I,
where those periods are longer.
yeah, I wonder if as well, like, with theatre and particularly obviously musicals, they're kind of running quite frequently. But you've got like Les Mis, you've got Wicked, which are continuously, these great theatres that we usually go and see the same things in. With TV and film, the production process, I'm guessing, is a little bit longer. And so all of those things, there's going to be a bigger gap, isn't there, surely? Because it takes a little bit longer to obviously produce these scripts, get them signed off, possibly get them
Yeah.
picked up. And yeah, yeah, it is interesting. And so, what did you do sort of to keep yourself like creatively full during these sort of times? Do you write? Do you produce? Which I know you have done some written stuff, but
Well, yeah, I don't know whether I can call myself a writer, but I the only experience I've had was creating a story with my friend Sam Barron, who
mm,
is a writer, director, and actor, but focuses most of his time on writing and directing.
mm,
But yeah, we created this story, and he went away and wrote it, and then we met up and edited it and tweaked it. Uh,
mm,
and that was a short film, and we made it together. So that was my only kind of experience as, I guess, a semi-writer or
mhm.
a
Yeah,
writing.
that was that tall, dark, handsome?
Dark and Handsome,
Yeah,
yes. And I'd
great.
worked with Sam before that on a short film called The Orgy. And then we made Big Ears during the pandemic. And then Tall, Dark and Handsome came at the end. So we made this trilogy together in a sense.
Yeah.
But in terms of, yeah, staying creative or, you know, active during downtime, I guess earlier on in my career, there was less of that. There was less
Mm,
time because, I was going from job to job to job, you were playing smaller parts, but I was still learning and it was very much a new experience for me. And I had a kind of, my family have or did have a family business and I would help out there, but it
mm.
wasn't very creative at all. So,
Some things don't always have to be acting though to be like
yeah.
creatively stimulating, I don't think. Like if I thought about acting 24/7, I think I'd probably go insane, to be honest.
Yeah, but there are other creative things or avenues you can go down, I guess, into like maybe music or playing an instrument or
Sure.
I don't know, writing or painting or whatever it is.
Mm.
I've played with the idea of improv.
Yeah.
I went to some improv classes maybe about 5, 6 years ago, and then last year I started going again, and that was very interesting because I don't come from the world of improv or a sketch comedy or a stand-up comedy, so that was very interesting for me. And you
Mm.
meet a whole kind of variety of people who are not actors, but
Mm.
simply to gain some confidence and want to improve whatever job that they're doing,
Mm.
maybe public speaking or whatever. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, improv was very interesting for me.
Yeah, definitely. I was wondering, you might not have like I mean, maybe you can look back on this in hindsight, but maybe you didn't know it at the time. But obviously, I feel like your sort of screen and TV career sort of kicked off. And was there a moment where you thought, oh, it's actually it's working now? Was there a moment like that for you where you were like, yeah, or maybe can you look back and think, oh, maybe this was kind of the pivotal moment where it kind of shifted into this bigger thing?
Not really. It felt very gradual. It
Mm.
felt quite subtle and gradual.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was no breakthrough moment.
Mm.
Look, I guess as I was working as an actor, that I can pinpoint certain jobs that um, changed me,
Yeah.
that changed how I'm seen in the industry, maybe,
Mm,
gave me a little bit more profile, uh,
mm.
other opportunities.
Yeah.
But in terms of one single,
I know. I'm glad that you answered that way. That's what I was hoping for. But because it does seem like a gradual thing. Like, as you know, viewers of in the public, when we see people and some people go, whoosh, this person's now in our sphere of, oh, we see them in lots of different things. It's nice to know that it is still a gradual process behind the scenes of people who've been working really, really hard for the past how many years before they've emerged into something that maybe the everyday public see now.
yet it's quite rare for it to happen that way, in the sense that someone's just plucked off from the street and given a lead role in something. I've been watching Adolescence recently. I don't
On
know.
my list. I keep seeing it everywhere. I need to watch it. Yeah.
So obviously the boy in that is, well, he was 14 when he made it, but
Mm.
don't think had much
No.
any acting.
Yeah.
But that's so rare.
Yeah.
Even actors, I don't know. I'm looking at trying to think of younger actors who were cast in big roles, like, I don't know, Tom Holland or Eddie Redmayne or whoever. I can guarantee you that they've had other jobs before that.
Mm.
They've been kind of auditioning and really trying to climb the ladder in a sense.
Mm.
But yeah, it's quite rare for someone to have a big break from nothing.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I'm wondering when you started going to, obviously you've been to BAFTA awards, you've been to some sort of like, red carpets. Was there anything in the that side of the intrusive thoughts maybe have come in have been like, oh, I didn't realize it ran quite like this. Was there anything that surprised you on sort of, red carpet events or things like that, or going to premieres where you're like, oh, it runs like this, and I really didn't think it would run like that.
Don't know. I mean, when I went to the NTAs, when was it?
Hmm.
Last year, and it was because Mr. Bates versus the Post Office
Mm.
being awarded a special award, and it had aired on January the 1st. Well, episode one had aired on January the 1st, 2024. And then, yeah, we were invited to the NTAs, and it felt like a big party. Like, uh, there were musical acts and stand-up comedians, even when they went to a commercial break and there was music playing and there was a bar, and it just felt like a crazy party. And I didn't think of it being like that.
Yeah.
But maybe, well, look, the BAFTAs and all the other award ceremonies maybe slightly different, but yeah, the NTAs just seemed like a big rave. Like,
Yeah. I mean, that sounds great. That means everyone's kind of at ease. Plenty of alcohol flowing. That's fine.
well, yeah, yeah. And it felt very kind of, yeah, informal in that sense.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice to know because I always picture them to be quite formal because they're work events, but that is surprising to me, actually.
As a part.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I suppose can we talk a little bit about your acting technique on set and stuff like that?
Oh, goodness.
Which I can provide some questions for, which is absolutely fine. So you don't have to just blase tell us the whole process to your work. Um, so you obviously you work on, I've looked at your CV and you've looked at a split of comedy, drama. That's kind of like your realm within screen work. You do a bit of comedy and a bit of drama. And I'm wondering how different is it on those sets when you're doing obviously something quite dramatic like Happy Valley, for example, and you've done, more of a comedy side of things like what have you been in, like Crashing?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how sort of different is there a different vibe on set between crew because it's comedy, maybe it's happier, or is it, you know what I mean? Like, is there this difference or is it not?
I wouldn't say the vibe is different. The vibe is very much, let's get the work done and try and stick to the schedule.
Hmm.
I guess with comedy, I'm thinking of, for example, the other one, which was for BBC, and that was a Holly Walsh written comedy.
Mm.
Uh, I felt like it was very quick.
Mm.
we had the opportunity to do maybe one or two takes. Uh, I mean, if we got two takes, that was a luxury. So it was very kind of intense in that sense.
Mm,
And I guess you have to access a different part of you, a very playful part of yourself in terms of comedy.
mm,
But and again, like with drama as well, you have to be very free and not stuck in, I don't know, a way of thinking where you've planned a performance. You have, I think the key thing for me is to feel relaxed, know that you know the material fairly well,
mm,
you're able to play around and be free and go with your instinct. With comedy, I think it's a bit more obvious, to
mm.
go with instinct. But with drama, I've felt that as well. With Happy Valley, Sally Wainwright has created this very detailed story, and everything is there on the page. And if it's not there on the page, she's given you, a character brief that is pages long and
Oh, wow.
very detailed. So
Mm,
it's very specific, but you can go on and set and, stick to the script, but be playful in terms of your reactions, and yeah, how you're delivering your dialogue, I guess. I mean, with Wainwright, you have to really stick to the punctuation. If there's a comma there, there's a comma. If there's a
mm,
full stop, if there's a silence, you must honor that,
mm,
and that's very important to her. But
mm.
there was still opportunity to be playful.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, in answer to your question, I think with comedy and drama, the vibe is pretty much the same.
Mm.
Uh, and look, every director will bring
Be
a
slightly
different,
different. Mm,
yeah, work in a different way.
mm.
I've worked with Dominic Cook, who's a theatre director,
Yeah.
but he will ask his actors to sit down at a table and we will go through each scene, work out the beats, the units,
Mm,
actions, objectives, obstacles, all that,
yeah.
then put it on its feet. And then I've worked with Michael Grandage, who wants you to have it all learnt by the first day of rehearsal, and then you're off book and you're
Mm.
up on your feet by the end of day one.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, each director, each production requires you to work in a different way.
Mm. Do you often do that? I feel like it's something that possibly I would do because I like to always be prepared. But is it something that you do where you learn, we're going to say probably for theatre now, if when you turn up for your first day, do you already know all of your lines or are you very familiar with the script? Like how is that? What's your process for that?
I haven't done theatre for a while. Well, I did a show at Chichester in 2023, but before that, I hadn't done a show in theatre for maybe 9 years before that.
Mm,
And that was new writing, the show at Chichester, and the script was constantly evolving and changing,
mm.
especially for my character, because he had in the second half this 10-page monologue,
Wow.
and that was changing constantly.
Yeah.
So I went to rehearsals as prepared as I could be, but knowing that it was work in progress and
Mm,
change.
mm.
So I guess with new writing, it's difficult.
Right. Okay.
The
Mm,
chance that it will adapt and be tweaked. I try to have it learnt because I'm not a fast learner, so I want to give myself a head start, really.
yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Was there any sort of moment where you were acting across anybody that you were a particularly sort of big fan of? I don't really like the word starstruck, but the kind of looking at somebody as of someone that you've admired their work for a long time and sort of gone, oh gosh, I'm now acting across them. And how do you sort of keep yourself focused on the work rather than looking at someone and going, oh, aren't they brilliant? And then be like, oh no, okay. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, yes, very much so. I think. when you have those moments, or when I have those moments of
Mm.
I'm just me and they're them who I've been watching since whenever, I become very giggly and just
Mhm.
I come out of character. And because it's still me
Mhm.
and I haven't fully adapted to it, I can't think of. I mean, when I was at the National, I did Comedy of Errors and I was working with Lenny Henry. And
Oh
Lenny
wow.
Henry, it was very much an ensemble show, but he was someone that I,
Yeah.
since I was a young boy.
Mm.
And when you're first doing a scene with someone that you've known, you think you've known for so long,
Yeah. Mm.
and admired, or I just became very giggly, and it just
Mm.
you have to just get used to that situation and scenario, and uh, really focus on the work and it's very difficult because you're trying to be in the moment, but the moment is
Exactly.
telling you that, oh my God, this
Yeah.
is since I was a child. So, but listen, I've worked with so many people that I've been blown away by, especially in theatre shows. Simon Russell Beale, Alex Jennings.
Mm.
I've worked a few times with Emma Thompson on screen. Yeah, just Helen
Mm.
Mirren. I think when I was working with Ampuri, who I don't know if you are familiar with him, he's passed away now, but he has been working as an actor in India, in Indian cinema for he had been for many, many years. And then he started to do films over here and in America. And he was in a film called East is East. He played the father in East is East. And he played my father in a DreamWorks film called The 100-Foot Journey.
Right.
Uh, that was a special experience for me because
Mm.
he took the time, even though he's this big star all over the world, he took the time to kind of get to know his what the actors playing his children, and it was a very useful exercise for us when it came to doing the scenes on set because it
Mm.
felt like a family. Uh,
Yeah.
so he kind of broke down those barriers of, no, I'm not who you
Yeah.
think. I'm just one of you in a scene, and
Mm.
we're working together on this
Yeah.
as a
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. And this is probably a similar vein to that question, but before you're going on to set and stuff and you're in your trailer and things, are there any things that you do you might not possibly before you go on set to help zone in? Like I know some people meditate or listen to music or um, just to sort of get yourself in it because you can obviously depending on the size of your role, you can be waiting in a trailer for quite a long
yeah.
time sometimes before you go on set. Is there anything that you do for that?
Me personally, I do a light vocal warm up and make sure that I don't have tension in my body, really.
Mm.
It's when you have tension, it just closes everything down
Yeah.
and you're less able to access, I don't know, your instinct or spontaneity, you know.
Mm.
So making sure that you're physically relaxed, whether it's your shoulders, neck, jaw, um, I hold a lot of tension in my jaw and my abs. So making sure that you're just breathing.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, a light vocal warm up. And sometimes if I'm working with an accent, I listen to people who have that accent naturally. For
Mm.
example, at the moment I'm working on a TV show and the character is from Manchester, so I would listen to Christopher Eccleston or Max Beasley or Will Mellor, who are from that kind of area,
Mm.
even if it's interviews, just to kind of tune in.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to think about it so much when.
Yeah. Mm.
Um, yeah, when I was filming Happy Valley, I would watch similar shows that had a
Mm.
very similar tone. So,
Mm.
yeah, that I could zone into that in a sense.
Yeah.
You're not kind of copying, you're just kind of using
Mm.
it.
I understand. Yeah, I understand. It's like sometimes I'll put together like a playlist of songs that sort of
Yeah,
remind me of a genre or a feeling, really, to help with that type of thing. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. I wonder how you network actually. I know possibly, maybe you don't network as much now, but if do you network and how do you sort of gravitate towards that? Because networking is, I find it terrifying. I find it absolutely terrifying. But I'm wondering how others sort of approach it or yeah.
I don't think there's any one, I don't know, way to do it, I guess.
Mm,
When
mm,
I was starting out in the early 2000s, there weren't many parts for people like me.
mm.
There definitely weren't kind of leading roles.
Yeah.
There were smaller roles, functional roles, supporting roles, but they were just not being written at that time. So
Mhm.
you were forced to be quite proactive, writing letters. Um, I mean, I didn't go to all these kind of events like network events or press nights, but I would kind of show an interest in other people's work and reach out to people, whether I wrote to them or sent emails. And yeah, that's how I was proactive, I guess.
Mm, mm,
And then as you work more and more, you make connections and you find your tribe and like-minded people. And as your credits grow, other people see your work and might reference past work when they meet you, and then you make connections that way.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But yeah,
But
that is it really. Yeah.
sometimes, a handwritten letter is very original
Mm,
and sometimes can be effective. And it's non-intrusive. It's not like an email. I feel
mm,
you're making more of an effort to write a letter to say, look, I love the stuff you do.
mm.
And if there was ever an opportunity, I would love the opportunity to work with you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, great. Probably going back to more your what you do in sort of like the acting room, I suppose, is that um what sort of are like the bigger rooms for auditions like? Is it still that or is it more self-tapes again? Or how do you approach sort of like a script when you first receive it? Those types of things.
When you say bigger or bigger rooms, what do you mean by
Yeah,
that?
so like I can imagine a room for like Happy Valley is probably quite a big room to be in, possibly. Yeah, and stuff like that, really, if they're sort of bigger projects.
Yeah. So again, it's different in each case. I'll
Hmm.
give you the example of Happy Valley. So I was asked to audition via self-tape. So they sent me the sides, and it was a lot. It was
Okay.
14 pages of dialogue, and Sally writes um, in a way that characters speak in a very fast pace,
Right.
and but there's a lot of dialogue, and it's constantly moving, and there's a lot to learn.
Hmm.
And I struggled with that, and I said, look, this is the deadline, and they want me to be able to tape this, all of this. I can't do this.
Hmm.
Because I can't read off a teleprompter and do a self-tape.
Oh yeah, I'm the same. Yeah.
Need to learn
Hmm.
it in my body and have it in my kind of my mind for a few days. I would,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
you don't want to be thinking about it while you're performing. I can't do that because it distracts me too much.
and it becomes a memory exercise.
Yeah.
You're just trying to remember lines.
Hmm.
And even when you're familiar with it, it's still work in progress. And this is what I think I have easily forgotten. Auditions, self-tapes, they should be a work in progress.
Yeah.
It's you giving a taste of what your interpretation is and your
Hmm.
specific interpretation. Like your sorry, your surname is Price, yeah? So
Yes.
So if you're given a scene or some dialogue, the way you deliver it, no one else is going to deliver it that way because
Mm,
it's your own unique interpretation,
mm,
as Grace Price's interpretation. Uh,
mm,
Same for me, and you're giving them a flavor of what your interpretation
mm,
is,
mm, mm.
not a finished article. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, bring, I suppose, as individuals rather than, yeah, the overall piece.
Yeah.
Mm, mm,
But then, look, it's difficult to trust that the people on the other side of the table are going to appreciate that or
mm,
aware
mm,
of that or keep that in mind. But yeah, for Happy Valley, I didn't want to do the self-tape because it was just far too much. And
hmm
felt like it was a lot of effort and my name would have been added to the bottom of a list and would have been deleted very quickly. So the agent agent reached out and said, "Look, I think you're very right for this. Would you be willing to, if I can wrangle it, would you be willing to not tape but then go to the first round of meetings if I'm able to do that?" I said,
mm,
"Yeah, fine." But I knew that I'd still have to learn the 14 pages.
Yeah.
So,
And what was those sort of meetings like? What do they sort of entail?
so it was one screen test. I
Okay.
basically went to Leeds, and there were about 7 people there in a smallish room, but it was
hmm
like a casting director's studio, and it felt like a screen test.
hmm
And it was great because they understood that I had a lot to deliver. They provided an actor who works as an actor, so to read the other parts
Oh, that's good. Yeah. hmm
rather than reading with someone who does actor, which
Yeah.
brings up its own challenges, I guess.
Yeah.
And it felt like a rehearsal
Right.
rather than a screen test.
Mm,
Because after a take, I would have a conversation with the director and we'd look at the script and, he would give me notes like he would on set
yeah.
and like, in a situation where I had the job.
hmm
So that's how that
Yeah.
scenario.
That worked. Yeah.
Look,
How,
sorry.
sorry. No, you go. You go.
No, I've been offered bigger jobs just through self-tapes. I've been offered jobs where I've just met the casting director, not the director. Uh,
hmm
I've rare occasions had straight offers, but it's just it varies. It varies.
Mm, yeah. How do you sort of what sort of advice would you give to possibly sort of like an actor walking on set for the first day that possibly hasn't really ever stepped on set before? Is there any sort of things that you would advise now that possibly looking back you've gone, oh, maybe I could have done that bit, or if there is anything, it might not be.
Be easy, go easy on yourself
hmm
because it takes time and experience to fully understand what it is to work on a set
Mm.
because there's so much going on around you.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with what your job is, which is to create a connection with the other characters in the scene and focus on your character journey, I guess.
Mm.
Look, but at the same time, you have to appreciate that the whole crew and everyone's working towards the same goal, but being as prepared as you can and trying to be as focused as you can and free.
Mm.
I spoke about doing kind of some light warm up in the trailer beforehand to make sure that your shoulders are not
Mm.
tensed up and you're free physically, so that you can be instinctive and spontaneous
Mm.
when the director says action.
Yeah.
But go easy on yourself because it just takes time and experience.
Mm.
Uh,
And can you like I feel like as an actor walking on set for the first time, it's obviously very nerve-wracking. Um, and so we can ask questions. Yes, you can ask questions. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Even if it's questions, simple questions about, I don't know, grammar or the text or a reference in the text, and that you may think is a silly question, just ask it because it's better that you ask.
Don't
Uh,
suffer in silence kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah, and waste a take where I don't know, you could have used that information.
Mm,
Uh, and yeah, ask questions to anyone and everyone. Like you could ask your AD, like, okay, technical questions of do I have to hit this mark at this point?
mm,
Um, will the boom op be following me around? And that you have to be aware of that because those things are going to distract you or
yeah.
can distract you.
Mm, mm,
So ask questions, what is a line one? What is a camera rehearsal? What is a pickup? What is a repo? A repo is, stopping the scene halfway through and then repositioning and then picking
mm,
it up. And so all the technical language,
mm,
no one's going to look at you and think, you don't know that?
mm.
Of course you don't know because it's
Yeah.
just so specific to that way of working.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was wondering, you must have picked it up all on set. You didn't read anything beforehand. You just sort of got on set and was like, okay, let's try and put pieces together with questions and all sorts type thing.
Yes, that's how I did it. I
Mm,
mean, I remember when I got a big job in America, it was a film called Pain Hustlers.
mm,
We requested to go on set the day before I was required as an actor, just to get a sense of how things were working on set. And, um, you know, that may not have been granted, but they said yes, please, you can sit by the monitors. And I just wanted to get a sense of how the director worked,
yeah.
how many takes he allowed, how playful he was, and just the general vibe.
Yeah.
That's how I learnt
Yeah.
by being there and experiencing it. But
Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
literature that you can read if
Mm,
that's what your preferred.
yeah. No, that's a good t yeah, that's very nice. Yeah, I think I probably would be the same. I think I probably would ask, but obviously, like you said, it's not always granted, but that's very useful to sort of see how it's working without you in it, to see
Yeah,
how it moves and stuff so that you're like, okay, we can see where things are popping off and I can just insert myself there and all that stuff. But yeah, I'm wondering if there's is there a character that you would, or type of character that you would love to play that you haven't yet played? Or yeah, like, is there something that you're like, oh, I really wish I could do that?
I guess when you mentioned that one half of my CV is comedy and the other half is drama, I
Mm,
felt like early on I was pigeonholed quite a bit because of the way I looked and um, the way I was physically, that I was asked to be in a lot of comedy.
okay.
But I found that world so difficult because I wasn't excelling. I didn't feel like I was excelling because I was competing at that time. I don't know whether things have changed, but with sketch comedians and stand-up comedians, and that world is so kind of saturated by people from that background, and I'm not that from there. I'm, I guess, a light comedy actor, or whatever you want to, however you want to describe it. But um, so I was pigeonholed a little bit and got frustrated. So I wanted to get into acting because I wanted to watch and do or be involved in projects that were very truthful. And
Mm,
now I'm really interested in drama and dramatic roles, I think, are where I want to kind of go forward and
mm,
focus. But I don't know. I can't think of a particular genre or story, but
mm,
something quite intimate. Like again, I'll reference it again, but some of the scenes that I watched in adolescence were just so engaging
mm.
because it's two people in a room with good writing
Yeah.
and playing off each other, and it's still as engaging as a big Wicked or
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
musicals.
I feel
Uh,
that's what most actors genuinely want as well. Whenever we see a duologue done really well on screen or on stage. I went to recently go see The Unicorn actually a couple of nights ago in London, and there was lots of duologues in that where the scene was the set, sorry, was very minimalistic, but it was just um, these two great actors just playing opposite each other, and we were all so immersed because the writing was so great and they were giving it some like really great performances, and that's kind of like I feel like everyone actors' secret dream is that we don't really want the extra fussy stuff. We just want acting type thing. But
yeah,
yeah.
that's great. That's why I think a lot of us decided to go into this career, I guess.
Mm.
I went to see Dear England
Oh, yeah.
I saw it with the original cast, but I saw it with the new cast just recently. And that's a mixture. There are some big set pieces and some musical numbers, or um, but I was most engaged when it was two people on
Hmm.
stage playing a scene on the Olivier stage,
Yeah.
and no music,
No.
but just kind of two actors connecting. Uh,
Mm.
and there were moments of silence where just the whole audience was
Yeah.
edge of their seat. And it was a very emotional piece.
Mm.
Um, and
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have to be a football fan because essentially, I think that piece is about human connection. And yeah, and the football arena is just the arena, but
Mm.
connection. And that's what I
Yeah.
find really engaging.
Oh, that's great. And so my last question is, before we wrap up, is what advice would you give to any creative?
Ah, goodness.
It's always the worst one for last.
There's so many things. Stay creative in any way you feel is possible. Sometimes when I feel like I'm hitting a wall or I'm getting frustrated, simply sitting at a piano or drawing something is a way to get those creative juices flowing.
Mm.
Because you're creating something. It's, from scratch. And I know it's really frustrating in terms of finding work as an actor, and the whole market is so kind of saturated. But find moments to be creative because when you are suddenly given an opportunity, then you feel
Mm.
more ready to be free and spontaneous and instinctive. And your brain, your body is already kind of used to working in that way.
Mm. Mm. It switched on.
And that can also involve going to see theatre and watching certain TV shows and films that really engage you and inspire you, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, So stay creative, maybe keep a journal. Um, yeah,
You've
in
given
it.
a lot. That's good. You have given a lot. That's a good answer. But yeah, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate chatting with you and hearing about your journey. It's been great.
No, and I love your podcast. I think it's so informative and um, honest, and you really do kind of give a good idea of what it's like to be in this career, but also it's not prescriptive because you as an actor, you're still finding your way,
Yeah.
like Judy Dench is still finding her way because it's constantly changing,
Yeah.
um, and that's the beauty of it, but also the challenge of it, I guess. But
Yeah.
podcasts like this are so useful, I think, and inspiring for people who may be struggling or finding that they're hitting a brick wall in some way.
Well, yeah,
So
I mean, it's the whole reason why it started, to be honest, because I couldn't find a podcast that really told me what I needed. I wanted to know. I think maybe that was the answer. Like, I just thought, what if someone actually told me what it was like through a series of creative guests? Like maybe, maybe we'd all find out something a little bit more than just waiting for the opportunity of an audition and figuring it out on our feet. Because I'm one of those people that likes to be prepared and know what I'm doing. And I wasn't getting those opportunities. And so therefore it was like, okay, well, I need to know what it's like so that I can feel prepared when it does happen type thing. But yeah, no, but yeah, thank you. And I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, and it's an ongoing discussion,
Mm,
We're constantly learning new things because this whole way of working, this whole career is an industry is
yeah,
changing day by day. You
yeah,
know, when I started out, we didn't know what a self-tape was, and now it's standard.
yeah.
And it's a very different way of working because you never got to see your work. But this
Mm,
way, you have to watch your work to identify which take
yeah.
you want to send. And you have to shift in terms of your brain and working almost like a director or a casting director, knowing what works and what lands.
Mm,
And you go back to do another take and you have to switch back to working as an actor and
hmm.
give yourself notes. So it's a very different way of working, and the industry is constantly changing.
Yeah. No, definitely. Definitely.
To have this ongoing discussion through a podcast or interviews is so useful.